Like all of my previously published stories that take place in the Nodwell's timeline speculative fiction universe, the Nemesis legacy has been specifically crafted to work as a standalone experience. Still, it is undeniable that, being the ninth novel-length book to take place in that setting, and given its position at what is currently the furthest point into the future of the timelines, it would be impossible for it to not potentially spoil a multitude of events from those previous works. For those keen to avoid that, a list of all the prior volumes from the Nodwell's timelines in their order of publication. The Big Men. 309. Shards. The Nemesis Effect. Big Man Down. 500. The Spiral and the Threads. 8. Tales of the Big Men from the Nodwell's timelines. Part 1. Threshold. Chapter 1. As the paralytic toxin that had been injected through his suit saturated his body, and the creature brought its salivating mouth down onto his exposed belly, Jacob Westbrook could barely feel or react to what was happening to him. Despite his best efforts to resist, the big man was effectively pinned to the ground, his arms and legs faintly squirming in the thin air and minuscule gravity around them as his breathing began to falter. Still, he remained largely coherent and conscious when the first massive bite was taken out of his abdomen, and he thought, "So, this is what it feels like to be eaten alive." The big man made one last effort to move, to escape, or fight back in any way, but it proved pointless. A few final, random twitches of his fancy black wingtips, the only result as his assailant continued to gorge itself, and he weakly cried out, knowing that, one way or another, he was about to die. Then, Jacob's body went completely limp and numb, and his mind was flooded with recent memories. At first, he thought the whole of his life was being instinctively presented to him, in the manner it had during his previous brushes with death. But Westbrook quickly realized there was a focus, an intent, and a potent sense of imposition to the experience that became almost entirely overwhelming within seconds. The creature, it seemed, had gotten inside his head, was actively rummaging around in it, replaying the most relevant memories that had led to their paths crossing. Thus, Jacob found himself back on Earth, months prior, riding an elevator to Albert Nodwell's top-floor office in the Nodwell Industries building, as he had so many times before. For a moment, what remained of his consciousness insisted that what he was experiencing wasn't real, that it was simply a vivid recollection of a past event being replayed in his mind with such intensity that it was drowning out his own ongoing attempts at thought and will. Then, that little remnant of the man who had been Jacob Westbrook was snuffed out completely, and the creature continued its viewing alone as it slowed its consumption, relishing and savoring the remainder of its meal, while it began to methodically cut away and remove the fine articles of clothing from the plump, autonomically wheezing, and formerly sentient old biped beneath it with its additional free appendages. It noted an oddly satisfying little swish, pop, and series of clattering sounds as the human shoes were forcefully plucked off and discarded, but otherwise remained focused on its task, aware that it would likely only have a limited time to probe the being's brain once the other organs that sustained it were devoured. Jacob had never been as happy or excited as he'd been in that moment, on his way to meet with Mr. Nodwell to discuss the parameters of what would be their first missions into interstellar space, the vast expanse of the universe beyond humanity's own solar system. In point of fact, as Albert had explained to him, they would not be the first humans to make such an excursion, but they would be the first from their dimension, their instance of reality, and that knowledge had filled Jacob with a sense of awe and pride, even beyond what to that point had been his greatest accomplishment and triumph, the literal salvation of the world. Indeed, in that moment, Jacob Westbrook